Hello and welcome back to AI in Your Career. This week, researchers went looking for what AI adoption is actually doing to middle managers. Here's the finding that should stop you mid-scroll. It didn't remove a single task from their plate. Added a full new invisible job on top, such as checking AI's work, catching its confidently wrong answers, coaching a team through tools nobody properly trained them on, and their delivery targets stayed exactly the same or went up. So if you manage people or you train the people who manage people, this is the one to pay attention to because it's happening right now to the layer of the organization that keeps everything else running. And this is the area I train AI in and where I recommend companies start if they want to impact performance and efficiency while building culture, not burnout. So I'm excited to share that this is in the news this week and we can review it and see what we can do about it. So the first is that a study was published in Harvard Business Review, and it found that managers are adopting AI. They're being handled entirely new and more invisible job, validating AI's output, catching errors it leaves behind, coaching their teams through tools nobody trained them on, all while their delivery target stayed the same. We reviewed in a prior episode how AI is being built into higher quotas for salespeople or other metrics. So the expectations are higher that when people have these tools, they will do more and better while never really giving them the support that they need and not recognizing it takes a pretty big effort to set up your AI to really do things well for you. And that's adding time, energy, and stress if they're not fully trained. So in addition to that research, we also found an article in Fortune magazine that described middle managers are evolving rather than disappearing. So that sounds reassuring until you notice what they're evolving away from. Companies are actively removing whole layers of middle management on the bet that AI plus a leaner structure beats a thick layer of coordinators, which is how they're looking at middle managers. They think raising expectations on managers that then remain around judgment, coaching, and contextual decision-making instead of status chasing is appropriate. So both articles are saying the same thing in a different tone. Like one is about removing layers and the other one about the impact on those still in the mix. So we know this isn't theoretical because companies making the cuts are telling us their actions, not just in their press releases. So Oracle disclosed this week that it reduced its workforce by 21,000 people over the past year. We did an article in the past on Coinbase's cuts saying they were moving pure managers. So again, it's just proof that companies are actively betting that AI puts a leaner management structure in place. And maybe that's true in certain ways, but I think it's worth paying attention to whether they really know what it is that they're doing. I think the question that every organization will need to consider as they look to do layoffs in alignment with AI deployment is how well do they know their people? And is it really all work AI can replace? In organizations that have lots of hierarchical layers, starting with understanding where roles need to be redesigned is key. AI doesn't necessarily take over jobs as is, nor should they. It's really about where jobs were being done inefficiently or layers of bureaucracy were in place that needed to be addressed regardless, and then where AI automation and efficiencies can then support a redesign for faster, more efficient work. So it should be a strategic initiative to first review tasks, processes, coordination, and judgment layers, and where a human needs to be in the loop and what other skills that humans bring that may be being ignored. So that has to also do with company cultures. And when the culture dies, so does strategy. So jobs may change, but in many cases, organizations may need to add headcount in order to take full advantage of AI capacities effectively in the short term. So while these articles take on middle management versus AI in terms of coordination versus judgment, it's a little bit simplified because I think industry and culture are dependent and many teams still have a long way to go to even deploy functional AI use cases in their teams before they can consider removing layers. So AI training doesn't seem to have met the need of teaching use cases, role redesign, and coaching to the level necessary to begin having people displace themselves. So also the fact that people are worried about displacing themselves is a factor that also companies need to address before they even consider training. So there's a lot going on here, and I think this research is continuing to break it down as we look at specific types of jobs that are being looked at and what the news says versus what reality is showing. So that said, if you're a manager, I think that you really want to look at your calendar, right? And don't wait to understand how much of your work is coordination work versus how much is judgment work and work that only you can do as a human. This is just for tracking purposes and also to help you decide where AI might fit in. So again, the faster you adopt AI to be functional for your role, the less displaceable you will be and more relevant. And your relevance really lies in all the things you must prioritize. And if something's going to be automated, your expertise is going to be needed to decide what that is and what is a hard stop on that, at least for now, and develop a workflow or a time-based flow around that you can then socialize with your teams and your peers. So what I really think is amazing, and I've alluded to this, is that the data still shows that despite widespread AI deployment in organizations, only 39% have received functional training. And I think some of the overload in the HBR article is not about necessarily, oh, I have to do all these new things now that AI is in the mix. It's really is, I don't know what to do with this thing AI. Managers and higher leaders are just being given tools and chat windows and capacities without understanding how to roll it out as a functional use case. Some are going the opposite direction, not training on AI and only giving tools that apply to them, which is helpful. Either way, there's a discussion, a socialization, a policy understanding, regulation, compliance, all those things that need to be considered and understood from the top down in a functional way. And the organizations doing it best are where the leaders are really learning for themselves. They're engaged in what these deployments are like, and really considering where it plays and what time frame and in what capacity. If you've already been training your middle managers, great job. This is where I do think that AI adoption either gets absorbed productively in the organization or kind of turns quiet and fails. Because if your middle managers aren't getting it and they're not deploying really useful use cases that can be replicated, then their teams are all going to be disparate doing things differently. And it's really not going to gain any traction for efficiencies and could even be messier than it was before. So that said, make sure that your teams are supported. Make sure you're rolling this out effectively with the right training and really consider what their job is in the process and listen to what they say in these trainings so you can really begin to understand where the gaps are and where role redesign can be functionally necessary. So in practical terms, like as an organization, you can do an audit first, run the audit on your own week, tag every meeting and task from the last 5 days as coordination versus judgment, and use the real number as your starting point of where you can look to deploy AI use cases. Second, don't wait for the organization to build the missing support structure. Even middle managers can begin to start coaching their teams, carving out an hour a week to share best practices and build out use cases and really understand the gaps in the tool usage. So again, I'm big on taking action proactively and not waiting for your upper management to do it for you. You will need to know AI so that you're not left behind. And third, if you're designing AI adoption training for managers, build the support that the Harvard Business Review article found missing directly into the curriculum. So again, it's not just about prompting and using tools or building agents or workflows. It's also remembering that you have to ongoing validate the protocols, review the content, and manage for edge cases as you go. So ultimately, despite all the AI noise, I'm seeing organizations still move really slow and fragmented as it relates to AI adoption. I think this week's research points to that. Before we can making cuts, we need to understand the actual day-to-day work of our employees and managers that are impacting the company's goals, and then build functional use cases that can be standardized for their roles to make this more efficient. Now, certain industries that we're seeing the biggest cuts, which is like tech and finance, are going to have a lot more structured roles and data and compliance already in place that allows them to understand what's going on and where humans may not be as necessary as they were before. But there's a lot of companies and a lot of industries where that's not going to be the case. So again, these stories are not everyone, right? You have to really put it in context to understand and not go into fear of jobs going away. We also need to remember that while efficiency may be the first layer that AI offers, the second really is the opportunity to be better with more information and automation that can open more competitive advantage, communication advantage, upskilling and growth for your team. So that's sort of the piece too. It's not always about cost savings and time savings. It's about, really using this powerhouse tool to get better. So again, it's not about AI taking jobs. It's about how we restructure work with these capacities and knowing that humans are not going away. And judgment, prioritization, managing disruption in edge cases, and hiring effectively and coaching up teams still really matters and is going to for a very long time. If you're looking for functional training for your managers, HBird can tailor training for your team from the foundation of tools to true adoption and use cases that they build as a group. And we can implement and drive sticky adoption into the future for their roles. So we offer our info and the sources for this week's talk in the description, and we would love to hear from you. And we hope you have a great week.